in Jamaica in late September and was well attended, and we were very pleased with the participation of the private sector members as well as members of the public sector. I represent Environmental Solutions Limited, which is involved in harmonizing the environment and development using cutting-edge approaches to reduce our energy costs, to reduce our energy impact in a global environment which is so focused on good management of our environment, reducing our carbon footprint, and also increasing the bottom line, because I think this is what the private sector is very interested in. I thank Mrs. Young for the introduction and the reminder that we would really like this session to be more than an informational session. We really crave your feedback, because in this forum we have brilliant minds with different perspectives to bring to the project, and we would like to have all the recommendations and observations recorded in this morning's session. So, as you heard, this is a project launch of the capacity building of Caribbean private sector environmental and energy management capabilities. This project was conceived by the Private Sector Organization of Jamaica, and it was presented to the European Union. But on its presentation, it was felt that it would add a lot more value to include the wider Caribbean and Trinidad. One may ask why Trinidad and Jamaica, because our energy profiles are so different. But it was recognized that in both countries, there is a fairly low level of knowledge about opportunities, business opportunities at the firm level concerning management of energy and of the environment. This presentation will look at the PSOJ CAIC Alliance, or project objective or approach, the tasks, guiding concepts, our context, and the project outcomes. I would appreciate if in our discussions that will follow, that the project outcomes, you are particularly critical of what you expect in terms of the value added that is expected from this project. The PSOJ is an organization which seeks to promote a competitive and productive private sector in Jamaica, and they do influence policy. The CAIC, which is our collaborating partner in Trinidad, facilitates the development, growth, and competitive positioning of Caribbean businesses in our changing world economy by providing products and services that are value-adding. And the creation of a private sector, Caribbean private sector, that is internationally competitive and cohesive in its approach to dealing with opportunities and challenges is one of the objectives of just fostering through this project. The rationale for this project is that business needs to improve energy and environmental management in key sectors. Our competitiveness, or access to international markets, or improvement of resources and resource efficiencies, and the cost-effective and efficient operations at the firm level. We seek, through this, to build private sector capacity in environmental and energy management, to promote a successful regional and national collaborative approach to energy efficiency and reduced environmental impacts. Our main objective is to build private sector capacity in environmental and energy management, and to promote regional and national collaborative approaches to efficient consumption and reduced environmental impacts. To develop a flexible, comprehensive, and structured legislative, regulatory, and standardized plan for energy and environmental management in Jamaica and Trinidad and Tobago. I should say that Environmental Solutions Limited is looking at the legislative, regulatory, and policy framework component of this project. And Caribbean ESCO is looking at the audits, and we will hear from Mr. Horton a little later on. My colleague who is with me, Dr. Winston McCullough, is, I think, well known in Trinidad to some extent in the legislative area and in the Caribbean, and he is our key resource person on the area of legislation and the key resource person on energy and development. The expected outcomes of this project will be an improved policy environment, design of the legal, regulatory, and institutional frameworks. We will look at what exists, and part of our mission on this trip to Trinidad is to establish the baseline, and we have had some successful discussions with the Ministry of Energy and Energy Affairs, as well as with the Environmental Management Agency and some private sector organizations and individuals. We seek to have a better private sector energy and environmental practice framework. We will not be able to give specifics, but I think our aim is to give a framework that is workable and which will add value to your businesses. We will seek to be meeting business needs to improve energy and environmental management. Our approach is an assessment of the private sector in Jamaica and Trinidad and Tobago regarding its legislative, regulatory, and policy framework and in the areas of energy and environment. Our tasks are to assess effectiveness of previous initiatives to address energy and environmental issues. And we all know that in our respective countries, we have had several initiatives. And so we are going to do an assessment of how effective they have been. Many of these initiatives were good initiatives, but there were gaps in terms of implementation or approaches or the resourcing to make things happen. So our assessment will look at effectiveness. We will also look at existing institutions, policy instruments, financing arrangements, rules, procedures, standards that impact on private sector energy and environmental management. Of course, all of this is tied up with the public sector, and we are going to see how the private sector can also play a greater role in influencing policy and how the public sector can accommodate the private sector more in its stakeholder interactions. We will assess the effectiveness of laws, policies, regulations, this is a big job, and standards and programs and instruments that govern private sector energy and environmental management. Of course, we will not be able to do this assessment of effectiveness without your feedback. We will look at various sectors, the main sectors being the agro-processing, energy, manufacturing, and tourism, because these are sectors that are very much in the forefront in the Caribbean. We are hoping that through this initiative between Jamaica and Trinidad and Tobago, we will develop a framework that could be applied Caribbean-wide. Of course, there are specific issues regarding these sectors, and the whole issue of climate change and the impact of disaster risk reduction has become very important to these sectors. We are guided by a win-win, people-centered, mainstreaming approach, which will be incremental and customized. It will be participatory and consultative. And our participation is not just informational, but really interactive and consultative. Environmental Solution has had as its way of operating the meeting and engaging with in-country partners so that we have a better grip on the ground action, issues, and activities. We will take a holistic, integrated approach, and we will be benchmarking our recommendations against what exists in the global